Hi, Kathleen. Are super excited. Thank you for showing up on my podcast. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Wow, it's really a pleasure to have you. I know we've been discussing quite a while, and you know, try to find the right time for you. I mean, I know you are very busy with so many things, right? Not just your professional work. So it's going to be an amazing episode. So I really appreciate your time. So let's dive in. I mean, please share with us a
Great.
little bit, about your background, your expertise, and what are you working on these days?
Yeah. Um, I'm a mother of five, and
That's a good start. That's a good start.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
I
it's
I do have a life outside of work. My husband and I, we love to travel. We scuba dive. I would rather be under the ocean than anywhere else.
wow.
So we live in an area that's pretty landlocked. So we ski in the
Mm-hmm.
winter, and we take trips to go scuba dive. So we stay
Very
pretty
nice.
active, which is great.
Great.
My background work-wise, I have been both a founder and a consultant to other founders. I've had some really great companies that had some really good exits. I've had some others that weren't so great, which is, I think, you learn more from those than anything else.
Correct.
And then
Yeah. Sure.
I started about maybe 15 years ago, 10 to 15 years ago, consulting with other companies and helping other brands learn operations from what I gained in the knowledge of always owning my own brands. And even with my own brands, my focus has always been that back end operations side. I'm a
Mm-hmm.
firm believer that sales and marketing will drive your revenue, but operations is going to drive your profit. So those efficiencies are those are my
Nice.
exciting thing.
Amazing. So what's actually get you in operation, and why you're still passionate about it after all these
You
years?
know, I love it. I like it. It feels very tidy to me. You go in and clean up messes, and you create processes, and you
Mm-hmm.
organize, and you identify areas where a brand could be losing money and they don't even realize it. So for me, it feels very victorious, right?
Wow.
There are
Yeah.
actual tangible things you can do that make a difference. And I think a lot of people don't look at operations like that. They look at the sales and the revenue as, that has the big drivers and the big exciting victories and they landed a big sale and everybody celebrates, and then operations is in charge of making that work.
Mm-hmm.
So, it really takes both sides working in tandem in order to create that success.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Amazing. And what are you working on? I mean, in Sally Garman, right, and Associates. I know you're consulting for many years, and what are the typical engagements? I mean, they're evolving around optimization. Working on
Yeah.
different. Yeah.
It's a super good question. It kind of covers a broad range of things depending on what a brand will need. So
Okay.
I've had brands hire me. I had a brand hire me to help them completely redesign their tech stack. So they needed a lot more
Uh huh.
automation. They actually got up to $25 million in revenue, which is incredible. But they were running the entire company on spreadsheets. Even they had their own warehouse and they didn't even have a
Yeah.
WMS in place. So
Uh huh.
we went in and basically set them up with a really good tech stack so that they could lever up from that 25 million higher. And I think that was probably a 7 month contract. I have others that they just want me to help them find a new 3PL warehouse. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
they've outgrown the one they're in, or they're unhappy, or they're self-fulfilling, and it's time to have, a 3PL with integrations. And so I'll help them. I'll do an RFP and help them find the right fit.
Yes.
I work for a couple of software companies, and I write content for their websites and kind of take that subject matter expertise so that
Mm-hmm.
the software companies that are making software for e-commerce know what the pain points are and what they need to solve. There's a lot of software out there, a lot of choices, and I think it's really important that those companies building those products understand their customer journey and what is happening on that side. I
Okay.
read something recently that said that customers don't want to buy a 3/4 inch drill bit; they want to buy a 3/4 inch hole. So you need to sell them the solution, right? You need to sell
Yes.
them the
Yes.
hole, not the drill bit. And I
Yes.
thought, wow, that is such a good analogy because it's
Nice.
true. The software companies have to solve the problem, not tell us all about their software.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm enjoying that part of the journey as well, working on that side. So it really ranges. Sometimes I'll go into I just finished a contract with a brand that, again, it was similar, lots of spreadsheets, lots of double and triple entry,
Mm-hmm.
lots of
Mm-hmm.
manual processes. So I went in and did an entire analysis and then assigned time values to all of those inefficiencies so that they could see how much time it was taking their staff to do that. And so then I was, all right, how many people do I have doing this? What do they make per hour?
Hmm.
And we tallied it up, and then that number is the monthly budget for a software and automation to get rid
Uh-huh.
of some of those manual things, and then it'll free up those employees to work on other things.
Okay, interesting. And when you work with brands, they usually come, you say, "Hey, I need to stop using Excel sheets and I need a tech stack," or it's just, "Hey, I don't know why I'm using profitability or I'm losing market share," or like people know what they need to do, or just you go there, you need to analyze, of course, research,
I think it's in the
but
middle.
it's in the middle, yeah,
Yeah, I think they don't know what they need, otherwise they could just implement it.
yeah,
But they know they need something. So usually it's they're noticing that things are taking too long, or they're having a real struggle with inventory management. Maybe
mm-hmm,
they have not enough or too much all the time, or their costs are really high for shipping, or they're having a really rough relationship with their warehouse and they don't understand why the warehouse just can't get it right.
uh-huh,
Whereas the warehouse, on the other hand, is could be in a situation where they're like they're not sending us the right in the right format, right?
mm-hmm,
So it could be as simple as figuring that out. So usually it's they don't know what the problem is, but they know there is a problem, and so then I'll come in and do an analysis.
yes,
I had one client that hired me. Their operations person wanted to leave and had been there for a number of years. And
mm-hmm,
so I worked with her on the knowledge transfer, all of the SOPs, all the processes and the logins and everything she was doing to keep things moving.
yeah,
And we documented all of it. And then again, looked for areas of inefficiency. But then I interviewed with the CEO for the new person. So I helped her pick the new person based on what I knew about their ecosystem and what they needed in terms of the skill set of the person that they needed to hire.
yes,
So I went in there and sort of identified the need, helped offboard the old person, and then helped onboard the new one.
mm-hmm,
So,
mm-hmm.
really, it's all over the map, but as long as it's in e-commerce operations, supply chain, logistics, it still fits inside my bucket.
Yes, so it's tech stack, it's processes, it's staffing, it's everything around the various things. So, and I know you are very structured. There is a process, right? So you go there, you analyze, you take your time, probably you provide some recommendation. I know you're also involved in the implementation. So, how does it look like in terms of the different stages, right, in these various
You know,
processes?
that's a great question. I think that the hardest stage is that first one for when you first walk in the door, because they have whatever they have and whatever layer of complexity and whatever
Mm-hmm.
layers of manual work, et cetera. And they have to trust me enough to give me the keys to the whole castle. I can't just get part of it. I have to see everything. I have to see how everything's interrelating to each other. I
Yes.
need to know how they're doing
Mm-hmm.
manufacturing planning. I need to know how they're doing their financials. I need to know are they using QuickBooks, and how much integration do they have? What is automatically connected and what are they
Yeah.
doing manually? What's happening through email? I like to get access to their ops mailbox and go through their emails and figured out how
Mm-hmm.
much back and forth is happening with vendors and with warehouses. And
Wow.
so really the beginning is the hardest part because it's that discovery phase, because they don't really know what to show me in order for me to do my work. I have to
Okay.
sort of dig through and find it. And so
Yeah.
there's sort of a lag at the beginning where there's no there's no measurable deliverable at first because I'm learning,
Yeah.
and trying to understand and trying to identify what they're doing and where their gaps are, and
And it's really
and
going
not
like
just where the gaps
deep.
are, but
Yeah.
what's going well also. Like what do I need to not touch because
Uh-huh.
they really have it nailed, right?
Yes. And it's really going deep dive. I mean, like the devil is in the details, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, so you gather all the information and try to analyze what's going on, the bad things, the good things, what's working, what's not. And then you go to the next phase of trying to provide some, recommendation or some plan, for
Yeah,
the transformation, right?
so what I'll do at that point is, as I'll come to them with what I've identified so far as the inefficiencies, and then we start to tackle the low hanging fruit first,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Okay.
Let's not jump right into the biggest, most complicated thing. Let's look for the easy wins and the things that they can solve internally that can make processes better. Maybe they have two different spreadsheets and they're moving information from one to the other. All right, let's just do some coding in that second spreadsheet to automate that so that the manual keying is out, right? Maybe
Okay.
they're using EDI. It's called electronic data interchange,
Mm-hmm.
and it's what brands will
Yeah.
use to sell to large retailers. And often a brand will start EDI and they'll sign up for the cheapest solution they can, and it's all
Hmm.
happens on the web, right? And so they'll go in and they'll receive an order from Target and they'll manually download the purchase order and manually download the packing slip, and then they'll
Yeah.
email those to their warehouse. And then there's a lot of back and forth, and then they'll upload that into the EDI portal so that Target knows that the product is coming.
Yeah.
Well, it may seem like that's the least expensive way to do it, but if you think about how many steps, I think I tallied it runs as 31 steps to manually do an EDI order. So if you're paying
Wow.
someone
31.
$25 an hour or more in 31 steps,
Hmm.
that order just cost you a lot more money. And if you think about,
A lot more.
if you look at how many orders you're getting in a month, you now have a budget for your tech stack, right? It's
Yeah.
whatever you were paying for that manual work is your new budget to automate that process.
Interesting. Interesting. And you mentioned the example of replacing the head of operation. You were very much involved, obviously, in the job description, the interviewing, maybe the criteria for selection, and the implementation. And so, what about like? Please share with us also some other aspect of implementation, like around the tech stack, around processes. I know you're very
Yeah,
much involved in these steps as well.
I am, and I would have to say that is the biggest area where you get blocked.
Okay.
Is right there, that going from identification to implementation. And it's, I actually did a LinkedIn post about this last week. It's fear-based, right? That
Mm-hmm.
the people that are currently doing all those manual processes, or the CEO is, they're very comfortable with all of their spreadsheets and all of their manual processes. And they're really nervous about what will happen if they aren't doing that, because they feel like they have control over that.
Okay.
And so it's getting
Sure.
over that hurdle, that to figure out what are you afraid of, and then addressing that so that it seems less scary to implement something, to
Yeah.
implement technology. Again, kind of that low hanging fruit, bring that down, bring that implementation down to the lowest common denominator of why, right? So you explain, well, say you're a CPG brand and you're using a co-manufacturer to make it's a food product, and
Mm-hmm.
you've got all of your raw materials and your ingredients, and then they make it and then you ship it to your warehouse. Well, there are a lot of processes that go into that, right? It's not just ordering a finished good and shipping it in and sending it to a warehouse. There's all
Sure.
the raw materials that make the finished good and the packaging and all of that. So
Mm-hmm.
all of those need to be coordinated and organized. And if that's a very, very manual process, maybe they're emailing or calling every single ingredient vendor. What's the current price? What's your availability? Send me the new information so that we can submit it to the FDA, et cetera, et cetera. Well,
Yeah.
there's a lot of manual processes. So the fear of letting that go is, what if we miss something, right? What if an ingredient is spoils, or so they want to maintain that control with those spreadsheets. However, with the right demand planning solution, it will not just track the finished goods, it'll
Mm-hmm.
also track all of those raw materials. And it could let you know, maybe you're about to run out of this product, but you have enough raw materials to make that, you had planned to make a different product, but those raw
Yeah.
materials could restock this product faster,
Mm-hmm.
right? So an automated solution that maybe has a little magic of AI in there is going to give you those insights. And
Nice.
so it's addressing that to take that fear away, so that they feel like, oh, if I do this, I'm actually going to have more opportunity to pivot and more opportunity to make changes and more opportunity to be in control and have control. Right now, with all the spreadsheets, you really don't have control. But with an automated solution that's pulling it all in from the warehouses and the sales channels,
Yes.
then you have knowledge, and
Yes.
knowledge is power, right?
Exactly. Exactly. And of course, post COVID, people are, companies are, there is an increased competition, shipping costs going up. I mean, look inside their internal processes, trying to. I think it's kind of an inflection point, right? Of moving from manual tasks, manual work to automation. And obviously, you mentioned also AI. So, where are the areas that you see, automation, and maybe you can discuss the AI aspect later of really working, and how do you see this evolving in 2024?
Yeah, so you used one of my favorite phrases, inflection point. So
Yes.
every company is going to have multiple inflection points, and I had it with my brands too.
Mm-hmm.
So, you have a great idea and you start, and you maybe procure some samples and prototypes, and you launch your website, and maybe do a Kickstarter or something, and then you start to get business, you start to get
Yep.
traction, right? Well,
Yep.
you still have all of those manual processes in place that you
Mm-hmm.
started with, but things are going well, right? So you're going to keep it up for a bit. You don't want to spend any money on stuff until you know it's going to work, right? Well, you're going to get to that first inflection point, right? Maybe you're fulfilling out of your garage or out of a storage unit, right? So your first inflection point is probably going to be fulfillment, right? You've gotten too big to continue to do it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe the first inflection point is we're doing really well on our own website. We want to launch on Amazon, right?
Okay.
And so then you have to order more inventory. You have to make sure your UPCs and SKUs are lined up so that they
Mm-hmm.
can be converted to ASINs. So that can be an inflection point, adding channels, adding more sales channels. Maybe your warehouse is way overloaded with all of your stuff and you're doing really well, but you need to add a warehouse, right? There's another inflection point. So
Mm-hmm.
each time where you run up against something where you're hitting the limits of where you're at, or
Yes.
you're creating your own chaos,
Mm-hmm.
that's where your next inflection point is. And you'll have them layered throughout the business. You'll continue to hit inflection points. And so
Yes.
you can't get complacent, right? You have to be
Mm-hmm.
looking for those areas where you are creating your own chaos. And when it starts to feel a little chaotic, when your ops people start to get a little burned out, your customer service people are hearing the same things over and over and over again. As far as customer complaints, that's an inflection point. You have to
Yes.
make changes at that point.
Interesting. Interesting. So about SNOP, right? Sales and operation planning. I mean, what are the bottlenecks or, some of the, pitfalls that you see in this process, and what for you will be an ideal process as well?
So, all the CEOs out there, I'm sorry, because I'm going to throw you under the bus. You are the inflection, or you are the bottleneck.
The
The
bottleneck.
CEOs are. They want
Okay.
to they so desperately want to maintain control, and they
Uh-huh.
had their idea, their business idea, right? And
Yeah.
so they want
The
to be involved
baby.
in absolutely everything. They want to have the final say on everything. You've given all of your people a ton of responsibility without any authority. And the CEO, the founder, is actually going to burn out because they are trying to drive the company forward, but they're also trying to manage every single department, which doesn't make
Yeah.
any sense. And if you look at a lot of companies, if I will ask them, hey, give me your organizational chart, and it'll be traditional, vertical. Here's the finance department, and
Yes.
here's sales and marketing, and here's
Mm-hmm.
operations, and then customer service is sitting out there by themselves, right? They don't belong in any bucket. And the CEO sits at the top of all of it, right? That's traditional. Well, if you look at that, it creates silos between each of those departments to do that. Nobody's talking to anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is cost of goods gets out of control. Inventory demand planning is completely off. You have too much or too little inventory.
Yeah.
The CEO's burning out because they're having to make every single decision. So S&OP is sales and operations planning, and what it does is aligns all of those departments together. And here I'm making a circle. It is a
Mm-hmm.
circle. So basically, sales is going to work with operations. So operations knows how much inventory needs to be ordered. Operations is going to work with finance to let them know how much everything's going to cost. Finance is going to come back to sales with here's your minimum sell price based on
Mm-hmm.
cost of goods, right? To maintain
Mm-hmm.
that profitability. So they're all working in tandem with each other, and customer service sits in the middle of the circle. They
Yeah.
know everything. They know why the price is the way it is. They know how we ship. They know how much inventory is in stock. They know what the big sales promotions are that are coming down the line that are coming up in another month, or so that they can be ready, right? Because they're going to
Mm-hmm.
have a huge rush of stuff. They need to know if you're onboarding a new warehouse because that might increase their customer service request. You're onboarding a new vendor. They need to know in case it increases warranty requests, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
the customer service, rather than being out there by themselves, I like them to be the heart and soul of the company. And I don't think you should hire the cheapest person you can find for that. You need
Okay.
someone that can be the heart and soul and can interact with all those departments and gather information proactively.
Mm-hmm.
And with a really good S&OP process, a company will meet weekly with their operations and their sales and their customer service team, just brief stand up for 20 minutes. And then monthly, a much bigger one where you're going through spreadsheets and you're analyzing promotions and you're analyzing the demand planning and the finances and where
Mm-hmm.
you are with your funding. And so you're looking at all of that on a monthly basis and doing minor corrections all the way along the line rather than hitting one of those inflection points and having to make major corrections. So with
Yes.
an S&OP, the company just works better. It's also better for the employees because they are talking to each other more. They're having more interaction. more ideas, more brainstorming. They feel more invested in the company and its success. And then the CEO, who used to manage every department and every decision, is now overseeing the whole thing. And they are free to drive the company forward. New business ideas, fundraising, whatever it is that they need to do, even
Yeah.
PR. I worked with a company once, and the CEO was just a media darling. Everybody wanted to interview her, and she was great at it.
Mm-hmm.
But when she was so busy in the day to day, she didn't have time,
The time,
right?
yeah.
So you release that CEO to do what they do best.
Yes, yes. I mean, it sounds an amazing process and definitely the right way to go. But what are the major challenges that you find, by implementing this type of processes? Assuming everyone are happy, which is not the case, obviously. There are people
Yeah.
who are objecting, obviously, job protection and all. So, I
I
mean,
think the biggest challenge with S&OP is each department wanting to maintain control and wanting to hold everything to
sure.
themselves.
Yeah,
Where sales doesn't want to give all of everything over to operations, because what if they're wrong, and what if operations orders too much inventory and then sales gets in trouble, right?
yeah,
And
yeah.
maybe operations, they're nervous about reporting to finance because maybe they were really late in ordering a whole bunch of stuff and had to pay for huge shipping fees to rush something. They're going to have to tell someone, they're going to have to tell finance, and it's going to
Yeah.
impact cost of goods. So they're
Mm-hmm.
they're feeling nervous about that, right? And so there are opportunities here for everything to be aligned and people to communicate and work better if they just release. Let go of the control. Again, the fear base.
Yeah.
Let go of your fear for how it will look and work together. If they're working together, then sales and marketing are telling ops what's about to happen. Ops is in charge of getting the right inventory in with a long tail, so they're not spending a lot of money on shipping, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then they're giving cost of goods to finance because they're able to have more time to figure it out, right? And then finance can be in charge of that big picture and make sure that everything's profitable. And they're going back to sales, going, okay, so for the next one, the next retailer you onboard, we need to increase our wholesale price slightly because our
Mm-hmm.
cost of goods went up.
Mm-hmm.
So if they just let go, of the
Yeah.
fear a little bit and work together, it's,
Yes.
it's actually, you have a more safety in your job rather than less,
Yes.
because it's more visible that you're doing a good job.
But hey, I mean, it's a big change. It goes down to the company culture, the way
It
things
is.
are working.
Yeah.
It's you took a big task, right, on your shoulders. So it's not as straightforward. It's very challenging, right? I believe to implement. But I mean, if there are pains out there and there's a willing to make a change, and obviously, with all these new tech tools and AI coming in, automation, obviously, I mean, it's a necessity these days, right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, I talk to brands and it's a different environment right now. With increased competition, cost of shipping is going up.
Hmm.
Advertising is, becoming very, very challenging. Right? Look at Temu and all, just buying all the inventory out there in terms of advertising. And I mean, it's from every angle, both from the marketing aspects, operation aspect, it looks more challenging. What is your view, I mean, general about e-commerce, right? For 2024, how do you see this evolving? What are the major, let's say, things that brands need to take care, both on the back end side and also maybe on the front end side?
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid of technology.
Mm-hmm.
Technology is changing. There are so many companies out there trying to solve your problems, and the majority of them were founded by someone that was an operator and understood that
Yeah.
there was a problem and decided
Mm-hmm.
they needed to fix it themselves. Whether it's a 3PL that was founded by someone who owned brands and were like,
Mm-hmm.
now I know what we need to do, or whether it's somebody that's doing demand planning software, or an AI insights and data analytics software that was created by somebody who founded a brand.
Yes.
All of those things I think are going to bubble to the forefront in 2024, and
Mm-hmm.
and they have been advancing over the last couple of years. However, I do think that brands are more kind of tightening their belts on what they're spending on some of those things, and so
Yes.
they're, again, it's that fear. They have a little more anxiety about taking on something new and implementing it. So from the software perspective, the software companies are going to have to show the brands the 3/4 inch hole, not the drill, right? They're going to have to
Yes.
show that they can solve the problem. And even warehouses, I'm always saying a warehouse is not your vendor. Your third party logistics warehouse is
Mm-hmm.
not your vendor. They are your partner.
Yeah.
They're the last people to touch your product before your customer gets it. So creating a really strong relationship with your 3PL is critical. They are
Sure.
not your vendor. They don't just work for you. right? There's a
Yeah.
level of respect that goes back and forth between the two entities that is really important to the success for both.
Yes.
So I think we're going to see it moving more towards relationship building in
Hmm.
that, whether it be warehouses or whether it be software or even brands to their customers. Everybody wants to feel heard and seen, and that there's some value there. And so relationship building is the way to make that happen. It's not
Yes.
things aren't just you're not going to win just because you have the best thing, right? You're going to win because you are solving people's 3/4 inch hole problems.
Yes. Yes. Now, interesting. I mean, you mentioned adoption of technology, which is becoming more and more, I guess, critical, and having that mindset and agility, building a partnership, not just with your 3PL, but with other industry, but also on the go-to-market side of things, right? What do you see in terms of product lines and, analyzing non-profit or less profitable products or categories versus, make the strong stronger, reduction of SKUs, anything on that aspects that you see happening and probably required to happen?
Well, and that goes down to that data analytics that I was
It's
talking about, right?
yeah.
Whether you're running your company on spreadsheets or you actually have a solution in place, and even
Hmm.
sales channels like Shopify has a lot of reports, or your WMS for your warehouse has reports. You need to take advantage of all of those, because it's really interesting. You might see a SKU that's lower performing,
Hmm.
but then when you look at your advertising, you realize that you have not shown that SKU in any of your ads. You're showing something that has a brighter color, right?
Okay.
And so
Yeah.
maybe just a slight switch in ad spend is going to push that up. Maybe your hero SKU you're going to run out of too fast. So you want to reduce your ad spend on that. You want to slow that one down and
Yes.
push the other one back up. So doing that data analytics and figuring
Hmm.
that out rather than just looking at it and going, man, nobody wants this. Maybe they don't want it because they don't know. Maybe changing the images on the front of your website so that one is the first one they see when they get on the website, right?
Hmm.
So sometimes it requires a little bit of experimentation to figure that out.
Yeah.
Um, Often there are SKUs that just aren't performing, or maybe have a bunch of warranty claims on them,
Hmm.
right? Maybe there's a production run that just wasn't great. You're better off pulling that and taking the loss up front than continuing to try and push that.
Yeah.
However, you don't have to just throw it away, right? Maybe there's nothing wrong with it. It's just not as popular. Put it in a bundle. Bundle it with your popular one. Charge
Nice.
more, and then
Yes.
you've just sold two or
Nice.
three.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there are lots of ways to move
Hmm.
inventory
Hmm.
that isn't necessarily the one thing at a time. If you're doing direct to consumer and your product is pretty popular, think about B2B. Think about selling
Okay.
to boutique stores and retailers, launching a little listing and store on
Hmm.
Fair or Brand Boom or
Hmm.
Miracle, because there are
Yeah.
there are ways that you can move higher volume of product. You may get a lower profit margin on those wholesale deals, but you can't look at it that way. You can't say, "Oh, I make twice as much selling on direct to consumer," because if you're selling to Target, they're going to buy thousands at a time from you. So it
Yeah.
might be at a lower margin, but it's
Hmm.
thousands at a time. Your customer acquisition cost is much, much lower, right? You're not one getting
Hmm.
customers. You're doing 1,000. And
Yeah.
then Target has your product on their website or in their stores, and all of a sudden you have brand recognition, and that's driving traffic to your website. So I think it's really important that a brand doesn't get super stuck in the mindset of only
Hmm.
B2B retail or only direct to
Yes.
consumer.
Yes.
And
Agree.
Amazon and Temu, I mean, those marketplaces are their own channel, right? I don't think you should look at them like a sales channel. Especially Amazon, it's a full circle,
It's
right? They
full
can ship
circle.
it,
Yeah.
they can store it, they can sell it, they can market
Hmm.
it, and they're going to charge you 15% to do that. Well,
Yeah.
overall, that's pretty small for
Hmm.
since they're doing the customer acquisition for you.
Yes. And they're providing
So,
like one click checkout and other fulfillment, and people
yeah.
trust them, and so there's a great value, obviously.
Yeah, well, and there's a credibility piece, right? If they
Yes.
hear about you or they see your ad on TikTok or Instagram,
Hmm.
they're probably going to go look and see if you're on Amazon
Amazon.
just for
Yeah.
credibility to figure out if you're legitimate or not.
Yes.
If they see you on Amazon, they're like, "Oh, okay, it's real. It's legit. It's a real website. It's not a scam. So
Yeah.
now I can buy this." Right?
So, what would be an ideal process of a brand, launching his business on Amazon? How do you see this process usually
You
taking
know,
place?
it's actually not that hard.
Yeah.
It's actually pretty easy to launch. Amazon has made it easy. They have templates
Hmm.
for doing your listings and uploading and getting your store. If you have a trademark, patent, copyright, you can get brand protection with Amazon, and you can actually have your own store. I don't know if you've ever been on Amazon where you're buying a vacuum from Dyson and it says, go see the Dyson store, right? So you
Yeah,
click on that, it has all their products.
sure.
So if you can set up that brand registry, then Amazon actually works to protect your product.
Hmm.
I used to work for a company called Final Straw. They make, actually have one right here. It's a reusable, foldable straw to get rid of single-use plastic. It's really cool.
Nice.
It folds up and
Uh-huh.
goes inside this little case, um, and then it pops open when you pull
Wow.
out of the case. It's
Good.
awesome. Um,
Amazing.
and they were on Amazon, and because that product is patented, there were a lot of people trying to sell a fraudulent copycat of it. So
Uh-huh.
Amazon protected that company. They actually, not only did they take down the fraudulent listings, but they packaged up those fraudulent products and shipped them to us. So we had boxes and boxes and
Wow.
boxes of fraudulent. So they wouldn't send them back to the people that were violating the patent. They sent them
Yes.
to us.
To you. Yeah,
Um,
amazing.
so, Amazon can be a really good tool. It can be a really good partner, and it's something you shouldn't be afraid of.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Interesting. And it's anything outside of Amazon that you see evolving in the market? I don't know, TikTok shop or
Yeah,
something on the social side?
uh, well, TikTok's the one everyone's talking about.
Yes.
Instagram shopping and Facebook shopping are on the rise too. Social shopping, they call it.
Yes. Yeah.
But TikTok is on fire. And
Mm-hmm.
I think that the early adopters, the brands that are getting on now, I think they're going to have more opportunity for success on
Mm-hmm.
TikTok because
Mm-hmm.
it's not as crowded a market right now on
Yes.
TikTok.
Yes.
And especially if you have a product that's extremely visible. So I'm actually in the middle of launching another brand
Mm-hmm.
with my son-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a product made for toddlers, and it's very visual. And so we've talked about
Yes.
that, about the social shopping, and especially for the age group of the young parents right now, they're all doing a lot of Instagram and TikTok and Snapchat and all that.
Correct.
So getting on that again gives you brand credibility too towards that age group of your market.
Yes.
Now, it's also, that same market is also for the parents of the new parents, right? So the grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
I'll buy. I have a 2-year-old grandson. I'll tell you, I'll buy anything for that kid, anything. So
Yeah.
I'll spend any amount of money to trick things out for him. So,
Okay.
that's something that we're going to target too, but that's a different, you have to go to a different place. They're doing different things. They're looking in different places for their products.
Yes. I mean, you need to be where your shoppers are spending time, right? And
Yep.
I mean,
Meet your customers where they live.
yes, and I mean, we have so many different communities, right? Like in YouTube and Twitch and Snap and Pinterest and TikTok. I mean, it's very difficult for any marketeer to whether you pick your battles, make the strong stronger, and try to win on TikTok, or just spread your budgets across so many channels. I guess it's not. There's no easy answer for that, right? It's
Well, there's no easy answer on
yeah,
that sales
mm,
side, and certainly not for me. You'll have to have somebody that is really great at sales
yeah,
on your podcast next.
yeah,
But
sure, sure.
from an operations side, there's a lot you can do once you are at that point where you have all those channels. So
Hmm.
you've probably been hearing the words multi-channel and omni-channel, and people kind of look at them like the same thing and use it interchangeable because they don't
Hmm.
understand, but they
Hmm.
are not the same. So multi-channel is what we've been talking about. Maybe you have 2, 3 warehouses. Maybe you have,
Yeah.
Walmart and Target, and you're on Shopify and you're on Amazon and you're on TikTok and you're on Instagram, and
Hmm. Hmm.
and everything is disconnected, right? All of it is working, but all by itself.
Siloed. Yeah.
Om- Omni-channel pulls everything together. So you bring in something that's order operations in the center of it.
Hmm.
I work for a company called Pipe 17 that's doing order operations. And so you connect all of those sales channels, your finance channels, your ERP, you connect all of your warehouse channels, and it's all in there together. And what that does is not
Nice.
only give you super great grip on your inventory and what's going on there,
Hmm.
great reporting and analytics because everything's together. You're not logging into
Yes.
all those different places and pulling reports, but also you can level up. For example, say you're in Target, you're selling in Target and you have your own website and you have a customer that had something in their cart that they didn't buy on the website,
Hmm.
but you're using geofencing and they are pulling into the Target parking lot. You
Hmm.
send them a text message that says, "Hey, this product that you had in your cart is available in store."
Nice.
That turns it into omni-channel. That
That's
gives
another
you
layer. Yeah.
Another
of
layer
like
of
online and
meeting your
offline, right?
customers where they
Yeah.
are, right? And
Yes.
online and offline blending
Yes.
is the very best thing you can do. You want them to see your product in Target and remember that they left something in their cart,
Hmm.
right?
Great
You want to
example.
put that together.
Yes. Yes. So speaking about partners, and let's talk a little bit about the 3PL and warehouses. I know you believe in spending time on warehouses. Put your boots on the ground there and go and research. What's your best recommendation in terms of selection of 3PL partners and in terms of selection and working with them?
Yeah, so I say never, ever, ever Google to find your next warehouse.
Uh-huh.
Because just because they spend a lot of money on ads
Yeah.
doesn't mean they're the right fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's actually a whole process, and I actually have all the tools on my website people can download for free. But you have to identify what you need. You have to figure out your requirements, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so it's filling out that scope. How many SKUs do you have? What's the average package size? How much storage space do you need? Is it hazmat or cold chain? Do you need special services? Do you need
Mm-hmm.
kitting and bundling? Do you need certain integrations? Maybe you are using NetSuite they have to have a NetSuite integration, right? So you need to figure out what your requirements are and what you need, your volume, all of it. Then you have your scope, right? So you know exactly who you are.
Mm-hmm.
So now you need to figure out who they are. So you have your whole list of questions for them that are related to your scope. But the how do you find them, right? You've gotten to this point where you have your scope. I've told you not to Google, so now what are you going to do? You're going to network. You're going to talk to every other brand founder that you know, ask them
Mm-hmm.
who they're using, if they like them, join groups on LinkedIn and Facebook and Slack of other brands and learn from other founders and ask
Mm-hmm.
questions. There's fulfill.com, which is a 3PL finder, and they're fantastic and they do a really good job to try to match that scope
Yes.
to so that they
Yes.
get the right fit.
Mm-hmm.
I never, ever, ever want to do an RFP and place somebody with a warehouse and have them come back to me 6 months later saying they want another one,
Mm-hmm.
right? I want to get it right the first time.
Yeah.
But it's not just about, okay, so, my guy down the street said these guys are good, so I'm going to sign on with them, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
No. So you take your scope document, you put it out for RFP, request for
Mm-hmm.
proposal. So maybe you've picked 5 or 6 that you think fit your requirements, right? So then you ask them all these questions, and then I have this rating rubric that you fill out where you score their answers to all of your
Mm-hmm.
questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get a total at the end for exactly how each one will do on each of the items you've asked about.
Yeah.
Um, Pricing is the very last piece that you think of or ask. And
Okay.
it drives me nuts when a brand thinks they need to ask, what do you charge for pick and pack? And that's the first question. Because no one leaves a warehouse because they charged $1.75 for pick back and the guy down the street charges $1.35, right?
Yeah.
They're not going to make the change for that. They're going to make the change for all those other things, the customer service, the SLAs, the integrations, how easy it to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
Are they my vendor or my partner,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
A warehouse that's truly acting as a partner is not going to have their clients leave. So I try and make
Yes.
sure that clients get to that partnership place. And so the pricing piece, I think there's way too much emphasis put on it because when you boil it all down, and if you looked at a bunch of invoices from 100 warehouses and plugged them all into an AI,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
it's probably going to tell you that the variance between warehouses is less than 10%
Yeah.
overall.
Yeah. So what's that special sauce? I mean, how do you analyze? I mean, what are like the the top 3, 4 criteria that you're looking at?
Yeah, and I look at that partnership. I look at customer service. Are you going to make me put
Okay.
a ticket in, or is there
Mm-hmm.
someone I can call? Is there
Mm-hmm.
someone on the warehouse floor that I can say, hey, can you open up that package? Because I think we might have to do a recall,
Mm-hmm.
right? You want to know that they are acting in your best interest. And so you
Yes.
want to ask a lot of those questions. What is my access to people? How do you handle problems? What happens if you don't meet your SLAs? If you're slipping and
Mm-hmm.
not shipping stuff out on time, and
Mm-hmm.
it's not my fault, it's your fault, what are you going to do about it? How are
Yeah.
you going to fix that for me, right? Returns, how are you going to handle my returns? Are you going to toss them in a corner and charge me $5 a piece for them? Or are you going to open them and see if it's new and I could resell it?
Mm-hmm.
Are you going to help me with that? So it's questions like that. It's are you going to be my partner?
Yes. This is again, as we said, it's a theme across the episode, right? Building
Hmm.
partnerships. Yes,
Yep.
very, very important. Any feedback or like 3PL versus 4PL, like making those type of decisions?
That's the million dollar question. I see a trend more away from 4PLs by brands because
Okay.
they want that partnership feeling.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
However, for some brands, a 4PL is a great fit. So, for people listening that don't know the difference, so 3PL it stands for third party logistics, and 4PL means they don't own all of their warehouses. They have relationships with warehouses across the country, but they make a software. So
Yeah.
their software is going to pick up your sales channel and push it to the warehouse closest to your
Mm-hmm.
customer. So your product is going to get to the customer faster if you're using a 4PL, most
Yeah.
likely.
Yeah.
However, there are drawbacks to the 4PL, right? You don't know where your stuff is. It's distributed. It's spread all over the place. You don't get to talk to people at the warehouse that have your stuff,
Mm-hmm.
right? They're because they work for the 4PL, right? So you talk to the customer service at the 4PL and they'll help. So there's layers in there that might
Yeah.
be less comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
It can take a little bit longer to inbound to a 4PL because you'll send your product to maybe their main distribution center and then they will spread it.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to wait until it's received at the final spot
Yeah.
before it's available to sell. So,
Mm-hmm.
there are advantages and disadvantages, and it all boils down on what you need. If you're doing super high volume, have a somewhat low SKU count, and you want stuff to your customer the next day because you want to compete with what Amazon's doing, a 4PL can be a really good option for you.
Interesting. Interesting. So, Kathleen, right, it was really, really amazing. I mean, it's so great to see your passion and energy, and obviously your expertise and knowledge in this field. So, thank you very much for all the exciting value that you provide. Um, this is the time that I must ask you about the scuba diving, right? So, I know you mentioned it at the beginning. I'm sure the audience, the listeners would love to know more about it. So,
I think I said I posted something last week on Instagram on LinkedIn about fear, and I
yeah.
put a picture of a shark on there. So
Hmm.
I was afraid of water my whole life. I nearly drowned as
Wow.
a little kid,
Okay.
and
Okay.
so large bodies of water were like the thing that I was like, oh hell no.
Hmm.
And so I got to a point in my life where it was time to start to make changes and face that and not live that way anymore. And so I made a list of
Okay.
all the things I was afraid of, and I was just
Hmm.
going to tackle them and check them off. And water was the number one thing. So
Wow.
I took a trip by myself to Hawaii and went to the concierge desk, and I said, okay, never been on a trip alone before. Always been with my kids or my family
Hmm.
and so, I want to do things I've never done before, and I want to tackle some things I'm afraid of. And so I went through the little book and was like this. I learned to surf, and I kayaked up to a
Wow.
waterfall and
Uh-huh.
hiked, and then I learned to dive, which was the biggest because I wasn't just looking at the water or going on a boat or being in a kayak. I was in it, and
Amazing.
it was really scary at first.
Yes.
And when we first went I remember in one of my first open dives, I was just panicking and I kept popping back. I couldn't even get under
Okay.
it. I just was like hyperventilating, and I had the
Hmm.
most incredible guide, and he grabbed me by the vest and he said, "Okay, we naturally breathe in, but we don't naturally breathe out." So he said, "Every time I tap your regulator, you breathe out. And
Hmm.
don't look away from my eyes, and just breathe out when I tap." And so I was like, super scared. So I'm
Wow.
looking at his eyes, and then, he's tapping, and I didn't realize it, but he's pushing the button, so my air's coming out. So we're going down, and then he's
Yep.
tapping and I'm breathing out. And every time I started to look away, he hit my mask to remind
Yeah.
me, look at me. Um, and then I'm going to say we were probably 20, 30 feet down, and a turtle was right here going right by
Wow.
me. And
Uh-huh.
I went like this, and my eyes were huge, and he let me go, and that was it. I was like,
Wow.
as soon as I got down there and I could breathe and I could see, and I mean, I've been diving with sharks. I've been diving all over the world. Um,
Woo.
and I've
Wow.
seen so many incredible things. And it doesn't matter where I dive, even a place, if it's not known for great diving, I'll dive anyway.
Yeah.
And there's always something to see, something to see. I was on one dive where it was so murky you could hardly see anything,
Hmm.
but you could hear the whales calling to each other
Wow.
under the water. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, that was cool. Like,
Very
so
cool.
there's always something. There's always an adventure under the water.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing. Anything else you want to add?
You know, be brave. If you're a brand and you're growing, be brave. You know, hit those inflection points and make those changes. If you're not a brand but you have an idea, be brave. Do it.
Hmm.
You
Amazing.
have, you know, you only regret all the shots you don't take, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
um, and if you're a brand and you're growing and you're hitting all of those inflection points, don't be afraid to make change. You already know in your heart, you already know something's wrong. You already know something needs to be fixed. So be brave enough to fix it.
Yeah, yeah. Maybe call Kathleen on the way. So talk to the expert.
Yeah, and I put lots of stuff on my website. It's
Yes.
sullygarman.com.
Okay.
Lots of tools. I give away a lot of stuff because I figure why not help.
Hmm.
Lots of stuff on LinkedIn, so I have lots of spreadsheets and tools and ways to organize things. And um, I've been fortunate enough to have the exits that I've had
Hmm.
um, that I can afford to give some stuff away. So I just want to help.
Nice, amazing. And we put all this detail in the show notes. So Kathleen, I mean, thank you so much. It was really, really interesting. I enjoyed it so much. Thank you for all the great, energy. We
Thank
can
you for
feel it all
having me. It's
over.
been fun.
Yes, thank you for the passion. Keep educating us, and we'll definitely chat and hope to see you soon.
Thank you so much. I
Okay,
appreciate it.
bye bye.
Have a great day. Bye.